students, it's Mrs. Bollinger. I am coming to you live from my home office. Hoping you are doing well. We're entering week 2 of this virtual learning, and definitely been interesting. I hope you are getting adjusted, and if you need help with us, please let us know. But today's video is all about Reconstruction. So we've ended the Civil War. The North has won. Abraham Lincoln is pretty much talking about what he wants to happen with the South before he's killed. He's obviously, we've talked about this a little bit in class, but he was assassinated by John Wilkes Booth as he was watching a play. So it wasn't but a few days after the Civil War officially ended that Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. So now we're going to discuss what happens after we win that war and how they got the South back into the Union. Because they had rebelled. They had, created their own country and gone away from the Union for a while there. So we're going to discuss how to get the Southern states back into the Union and kind of everybody back in good graces. All right, so let's open up my PowerPoint here. And there we go. You should be able to see that there. It says the era of Reconstruction. So when you reconstruct something, you're putting things back together. And that is what Reconstruction was all about, is putting the Union back together, putting the Union together with the North and the South all together as one country again. So it did take a long time. It was not immediate. The South was pretty decimated after the war. There was a lot of destruction and bombing of major cities, and a lot of the cities that were being sieged were in dire repair. So there was a lot to fix in the South after Reconstruction. The other big thing that they needed to fix was what to do with these freed slaves. So it was fantastic that these slaves got freedom, but what happens next? What do we do with the slaves that were now free? They're going to have to learn how to, provide for themselves. So they needed to get jobs and, have a place to live and all of those things too. So lots of ideas going into Reconstruction as to how to fix what was going on. All right, so let's get started here. All right, so there's Abraham Lincoln, and his plan started with what he called malice towards none. Abraham Lincoln was a very gentle soul, and even though he was very good at battle tactics and everything, and keeping in touch with his generals during the Civil War, when the Civil War was won, remember, his main reason for going into the Civil War was to save the Union. And when he did that, when he saved the Union, he realized that bringing them back into the North needs to be an easy thing. So malice towards none means that malice means, no evil, no bad things towards the South. So kind of an easy way for the South to get back into the Union. He called it the 10% plan. And what that meant was 10% of a state's voters must pledge loyalty to the U.S. and support emancipation. So the Southern states would get together and vote, and as long as 10% of the people that voted said that they were loyal to the United States of America and they would support emancipation of those slaves, basically freeing the slaves, then they would be allowed back into the Union. So very easy, simple plan, right? 10% is not very much. So he was pretty easy on the people of the South. But as we know, Abraham Lincoln only lasted a few days after the Civil War. So his plan is never really put into place because of his death. All right, so let's talk about radical Republicans. So Abraham Lincoln was a Republican, one of the first Republicans to be elected president from the Republican Party. But when we look at the term radical Republicans, radical means like out there, far, like passionate, like they are intense people, okay? These radical Republicans controlled Congress at the time. They were the ones that were basically the majority party in both houses of Congress. And these radical Republicans had a little bit different plan than Abraham Lincoln. They really thought Lincoln was being too easy on the South. They wanted to kind of punish them for leaving the Union, punish them for the Civil War. And they wanted to absolutely demand those civil rights for freedmen. Freedmen are slaves that are freed after emancipation. So when the slaves got free, they were called freedmen after that. Whether they were men or women didn't matter. They were just called freedmen. And they really felt like there should be some civil rights for these freedmen, that they should have the same guaranteed rights as the white people of the South as well. And they also wanted to provide protection with the Union soldiers across the South. So they wanted to make sure that those Union soldiers that were still, because they were still in place in some of these places, to make sure that the slaves were freed, and to make sure that there was law and order in the area. They were kind of like a police force almost. And so they wanted to provide protection for those Union soldiers as well. All right, let's talk a little bit about the Wade Davis bill. And if you're following along with your notes, you might have to skip down a little bit. We'll go back in just a second. But this guy is Senator Davis, and he was from Ohio. And he was one of those radical Republicans. He wanted to really punish the South and make them pay for what they did. So he comes out with a bill. Remember, a bill, if you remember from last year, is a bill. It's called before it becomes a law. Okay. He said that basically in 1864, so before the war ends, remember the war ends in 1865, he wants this law passed that 50% of the voters, remember Lincoln wanted 10%, while Senator Davis wanted 50% of the voters must take the oath of allegiance. Basically, the oath of allegiance was, yes, we support the United States of America. So a lot higher percentages than Abraham Lincoln. He also wanted to pass, the bill did pass both houses of Congress, because those radical Republicans, they were like, yeah, let's stick it to the South. They really need to agree with the United States. But Lincoln vetoes it. So it never actually becomes law. So it could be a good thing, could be a bad thing, but you get the idea that the radical Republicans and Lincoln were a little bit not on the same page. Lincoln was definitely a little bit more lenient with the Republicans with the southern states than the radical Republicans. All right, Andrew Johnson. So who is Andrew Johnson? Andrew Johnson was actually President Lincoln's vice president. He was elected along with Lincoln. He was from the South, which was interesting, but he was definitely not on the same page as Lincoln with some of his policies. My own personal terms, I call him a racist because he definitely did not agree with emancipation. He didn't agree with freeing the slaves. He didn't agree with equality for African Americans. So his thoughts and ideas were very different from Abraham Lincoln. I think one of the reasons Lincoln chose him as a running mate, as a vice president, was to try to get some more Southern votes whenever he was first elected president. It just didn't work out well for him, but he does get to become president when Lincoln dies, okay, when he's assassinated. So he issues his own plan after Lincoln's death, and he basically says that instead of Congress, or radical Republicans in Congress, coming up with all of the ideas on how to make the Southern states come back into the Union, that each Southern state needs to call a state convention. And in that state convention, they would need to repeal secession. Let's break that down. Repeal means to take back or change. Remember, secession was to break apart. So secession broke them apart from the Union. It separated them from the Union. So if they were repealing secession, they basically were putting back together and joining the Union again. Okay, so that's what he thought should happen. Instead of radical Republicans, coming up with a plan, that's what he thought. He does eventually allow the Southern states to rejoin the Union through Abraham Lincoln's plan with the 10%, made it a lot easier, but not without a fight. He does actually get impeached for fighting with the radical Republicans. the radical Republicans thought he was too lenient as well. So if you're ever in jeopardy and want to know who the first president to ever get impeached was, it was Andrew Johnson. And a lot of the reason he got impeached was because he completely disagreed with the radical Republicans in giving more rights to African Americans in the South. He really felt like the South should just be easily brought back into the Union, whereas the radical Republicans didn't, and he got impeached for that. Now, he did not get removed from office. We've actually never had a president removed from office because of impeachment, even our current president, Donald Trump. But he made a deal basically with radical Republicans. You leave me in office, so don't withdraw me or don't make me leave office, make it where I'm not. So he was impeached, he was brought before trial, but he was found not guilty. So make me not guilty and I will kind of step back and let you guys deal with Reconstruction. And so that's what they did. They let him stay president. He was voted out of office the next election. But the radical Republicans kind of got what they wanted with the changes in the South and the South coming back into the Union. All right, that's it for the first classroom notes. Hope that was quick and easy. And next is what life was like in the South for Reconstruction. So let's get on with that and you guys find the next video. Thanks.